Welcome back to Morning Live. We now take a final look at your sports news for today. Now, contact sport by its very nature is dangerous, and the recent horrific injury to a Paarl Boys High rugby player who ended up in ICU has brought our focus back to the dangers that are lurking around the corner. To help us talk about this, we've roped in Ruan Vermaak, who represents medical care company Crisis on Call. Good morning, Ruan. Thank you so much for joining us on Sports on Morning Live.
Good morning, guys, and thank you for having me.
Ruan, let's just talk about how of late, particularly in the sport of rugby, injuries and the horrific ones that have been a concern for both parents as well as students who participate. Maybe tell us what SA Rugby's policies are in terms of the medical care that's required to be available at school rugby games.
Yes, most definitely. The biggest thing that SA Rugby requires an ambulance available at all sport games, rugby games, cricket games, wherever you go. It is compulsory for an ambulance to be there, and the ref actually has the right to basically say that he's not going to start the game until there's a qualified ambulance with qualified personnel ready to assist in the case of emergency at the specific sport event.
And Ron, when we look particularly at sports events that take place at schools, if it's a school that doesn't have the resources or the facilities to be able to have those ambulance services there, what happens in those instances? Is there some sort of aid that is then given to those schools?
So basically, actually not. It is very important for ambulance service to be present. They can have their own first aid. That is also compulsory. So at least level 3 first aid it's very important to be there on site. If you have a look at the specific injuries when it comes to specifically rugby, between 2016 and 2020, just before the COVID pandemic, more than 5.3 million sports injuries was recorded, which about 6% of those injuries was injuries that needed to undergo surgery. And 20% of those injured children, they basically never want to compete in any type of sport again after injuries such as this.
That's a very high percentage. But let's move on and talk about, we speak about school rugby and what the concerns are there, but they don't only end there. We also, when we move into club rugby, there's actually a lot of concerns there. Talk to us about these, particularly when it comes to club rugby.
So obviously, as in the higher level you play, the impact is obviously higher. The game gets faster. And one of the most and the biggest concerns is information. So when a person plays or a player plays the game, morally they don't carry information with them on the field. So basically, a lot of the times the coaches, even on school level, on club level, wherever you go, they have the information of the children and the players, if I can refer to that, by hand in a file. Now basically, not a lot of those coaches has the file with them at all times. So this is wasting a lot of time when when there's a big injury taking place. Like for instance, the past weekend, I was present at a specific school where under 15 child was tackled by the other team, and it was a clear, perfect tackle, 110% according to the law book, and this specific player was 20 minutes unconscious. That they struggled to get his conscience back because of the whiplash that he had in the tackle. So in a case like that, the players doesn't know where they are, where they're coming from, who's the school they are playing for, the club they're playing for, represent. And this is a big issue. So the information and who do you phone in that time is very critical. And it's a really big issue popping up in South Africa at the moment.
And I suppose that's why we need to make sure that we do have the medical services there present for every single game. Let's talk about the types of injuries which can take place. I know you've touched on it slightly, but I want us to look at concussions in particular, because when it comes to concussion, it's pretty important that that assistance that's needed at that time is quite accurate and quick because of the long-lasting effects and consequences of such an injury. What measures are put in place to deal with the concussion, maybe concussion tests that take place, or having higher penalties that are imposed on the team for the types of tackles? And I know you say, rightly so, that sometimes the tackle is 100% according to the law book, but the effects of it are something untoward.
Yes, I know that the SA Rugby is really strict when it comes to high tackles and dangerous and foul play. They are really strict. We can actually see that on national TV when they play. You can see that they take this very seriously. All the coaches and everyone that is involved with the rugby teams has to have a box smart qualification, which is a wonderful thing that a few years ago that SA Rugby implemented. This learns everyone exactly on how to deal with concussion and basic first aid measurements. So yeah, it's definitely all the rules from SA Rugby is in place. But yet again, the only loophole that we see here is the fact that information is a quite critical thing that can end up and can actually take a life if the injury is that serious. But to answer your question, if all the rules and if someone maybe suffers from a concussion, specifically because of a high tackle or whatever the case may be, they basically will be taken off the field, and the ref actually has a right to give the player a blue card that will make sure that the player won't come back on the field after the test. So it all depends on the impact. So yeah, the rules are really strict in that regard. It's only for the information of the specific player. If they maybe have a massive concussion or something that is giving them a problem, or a neck injury or a spinal injury, and they need to be transported now. One of the biggest issues as well is always the question: is this child or person or player basically, is they on a medical aid? Who's the medical aid? And what plan on the medical aid do they belong to? Because in certain plans of the medical aid, you need to go to certain hospitals, like a network option or something like that. And this can be a very big problem at the end if you need medical attention. So information is vital and very important.
Ruan, thank you so much for your time here this morning, and thank you for the work that you do in ensuring the safety of players on and off the field.
Thank you so much.
That is Ruan Vermaak. He is a representative of medical care company Crisis on Call, talking all things about injuries in sport, particularly looking at rugby.